Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samuel Sorrell. This is my classrooms. We're doing science P23. Today's lesson is on environmental solutions. The learning objective is students will be able to use previously learned environmental solutions, reduce, reuse, and recycle to perform today's lab. Okay. I gave this lesson and modified this lesson also for an autistic student that I have in my class who's severely autistic, low functioning, and is somewhat independent, but just has a really hard time retaining information. So a lot of things will be very repetitive for him until it actually sticks. Okay, so what I did was I listed all the lab materials on the board, because the autistic student can read, but also my autistic student needs visual prompts, okay? So we'll go over the lab materials, then we'll go over the safety measures, and after that we'll get into the lesson. So our lab materials is listed: sheets of paper, safety goggles, a blender, 1 liter of water, square pan, a wide screen, flat board, and newspaper, okay? Then we go over to the safety measures. I also use the red marker, just so the kids know that the red is more of a color of warning, okay? So the first thing they want to do for their safety measures is do an inventory check. And in this lesson, for the lab, the students will be working in groups, okay? And they could go over the inventory check by using the visual prompts to help the autistic child that's in the room. So when they're doing the inventory check, they can say, do we have a blender? Show me the blender.
It's in your right hand.
In my right hand. After the child takes the picture of the blender, you just match it to the blender, and he just gets a feel for the blender to see what a blender is. Another example would be, do we have a wire screen? Wire screen. Which hand is the wire screen in?
The left.
Beautiful. Can you match it to the wire screen, please?
Yes.
And then after that, they match it to the wire screen. Okay? That way we can see if they already have a bit of understanding of just the materials that they are about to use. Now, to begin the lesson, I would have the higher functioning student reading the steps and the lower functioning student using the visual prompts so they could make their way through the actual lab experiment. Okay? So, can somebody read the first step for me? What would be the first step?
The first step is to tear 2 sheets of used paper into small pieces.
Okay, so first off, which one is the used paper? Which one is the used paper? Yes.
In your left hand.
In my left hand, thank you. And you match it to used paper. What do you do with that used paper, sir?
You put it in the blender.
You put it in the blender, but before you put it in the blender, what do?
You tear it up into small pieces.
Excellent. He almost missed a step, but he remembered. You have to tear it up into small pieces. Excellent. What would be the second step now?
The second step is to put the pieces in a blender with 1 liter of water. Cover and blend until the mixture is soupy.
Okay, cover and blend until the mixture is soupy. So now you want to blend, okay? Which one is the blender?
The blender is in your right hand.
Okay. Now you take it, you do what with, you put what in the blender?
Water and the small pieces of paper.
Water and a small piece of paper, and then what do you do after that?
You blend it until it's soupy.
Oh, you blend it until it gets soupy. Do you want it to get hard?
No.
No, and that's a quick assessment during the lesson that you can ask your student. After you get through the whole lesson and you finish going through all the steps, there's an evaluation at the end where the student gets to check to see if the paper that they made, that they recycled, is as strong as the paper that they originally tore to pieces, the worn-out paper. And that's one of the ways that they can evaluate their experiment. For an assessment, you can do an assessment on the entire lesson, not just the main point that we're focusing on today, which is recycling. So you can ask your class, what is an example of reducing? How would you reduce for environmental solution? Yes?
By turning off the lights in my house that's not being used.
Okay, and what does that save?
The electricity.
Okay, thank you very much. Give me an example of how you would reuse.
Reuse, use the same bottle to put in water every day.
Okay, excellent. So that way you won't have to do what?
You don't have to buy a new bottle.
Excellent, good job. And what about recycle? Give me an example of recycle.
You have an old pair of pants. You cut them into new shorts.
Excellent, good job. Okay. At the conclusion of that lesson, if you want to give a quiz, you can to assess them. I use the word quiz only because test and exam kind of give my kids a little bit of anxiety. And then after that, if you want, you can also let your kids enjoy, some fun activities with environmental solutions. This is a recycling game that I found on sciencegames.com. It's called Schoolyard Recycling, and this is a smart board. And you could play another game called Recycle Roundup. Smart board is very safe. There aren't any safety hazards here. You don't have to touch any of the markers. All you have to do is just touch the board, and it just responds to your touch. And this is a great way to modify a science lesson using visual prompts and technology. And that's it. Thank you.